Hello everyone, Audrey Henley here, and today I'm going to be talking about some of my all-time favorite books. Okay, so like most writers, I have a bit of an eclectic taste in books, and I think these books in particular show you a little bit about me, my inspiration, and just some of the works that have really stuck with me for a long time. And this is by no means exhaustive. I just have 7 or 8 books here I want to show you, and they all just really mean a lot to me. So let's just get started. First book is pretty old. It's Main Street by Sinclair Lewis. Sinclair Lewis isn't super well known, but he's sort of classic 1920s American writer around the same time period as F. Scott Fitzgerald. And I just really love his writing. He's from Minnesota like me, so I'm sure that's part of it, but I just really like the way he captures the Midwest in a really sincere way. In this particular book, Main Street, the main character is this woman. Her name is Carol Kennicott, and she's just too cool for this like Gopher Prairie, this boring Midwestern town in the middle of nowhere, and she really just needs to get out. And even though her character is treated very like ironically and like it's clear, she's not just a good character. She has some issues herself. She's condescending, she's mean, but just some of her impulses I super identify with, so definitely check this one out if you haven't already. I'm just checking when this book was published. Yeah, copyright 1920, so it's super good. Okay, my next book is not a surprise to anyone. It's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This one is on a lot of people's lists, obviously. I've earmarked my copy quite a bit. It's just something about Jane Austen's writing. She's super witty. I think it's again like the Sinclair Lewis, like the judginess. I don't know if I'm like a petty person or something, but I really enjoy that sort of petty, ironic narrator. Like something about it gets to me. I think it comes out a lot in YA for first person narrators as well, but in the older books I really enjoy the third person narrator who's just a little sassy. I think the enemies to lovers trope really stems from here, and it's really done well. I think the emotional growth, like to get from enemies to lovers, it naturally creates a very dramatic arc, and it's really exciting and really satisfying at the end. Okay, so now moving on to some newer books. I'll start with adult, I think, and then go back into some books I read when I was younger, but that's like never left me. So up next, Jennifer Egan, A Visit from the Goon Squad. This book is super interesting. It's a series of chapters told from different perspectives, and it really jumps around in time a lot, but it follows a core set of people. And I'm very particular to a certain chapter in here. It's the chapter Great Rock and Roll Pauses, and it's written from the perspective of Allison Blake, and she is hard to explain. It's very multi-generational. But anyway, one of the main characters, this is her daughter, and there's also a son who has autism. He's on the spectrum, and he really enjoys pauses in rock music, and it sort of ties back to his mom being a rock star in the past or hanging out with rock stars. And so the sister is really into PowerPoint, and she creates an entire PowerPoint presentation about her brother and his love of rock pauses, and it also addresses the way the father doesn't really get his son that well. They don't get along, and he wishes he wouldn't care so much about rock pauses. And not only is the format so cool, like who wouldn't want to read a chapter entirely in PowerPoint, but it's just like a really natural look at a sibling of someone with autism, which is something that really is applicable to me in my background. And I've always just been drawn to books that do that, and it's really just well done. All the chapters are amazing, but that PowerPoint chapter, man, it really got to me. So on a similar note, I've got The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. And I think this book was pretty popular, and a lot of people know about it. But if you haven't heard about it, it is narrated by a person with autism. The main character's name is Christopher John Francis Boone. He knows all the countries of the world and their capitals and every prime number up to 7,057. I don't know, guys. It's just... I have a lot of trouble talking about this, but authors who are able to really get that experience right are just really precious in my heart. And the thing that gets me in this book is Christopher doesn't like hugs because a lot of people with autism have sensory issues, and it could be different for everyone, but in his case, he doesn't like hugs. And so to show affection, people who know him well will press their hand to his like this. And I don't know, it's just really sweet. As I'm talking, I'm realizing that I'm not good at book reviews at all. But pick up this book if you want a really cool mystery told from a perspective, like, I feel like mysteries a lot of the times it's some like cool dude who like wears a top hat or something. This isn't that. It's more modern. It's beautiful. Highly recommend. So yeah. Next I've got Miles from Nowhere by Nami Moon. So this is technically an adult literary book, and it's a series of short stories, but it follows the protagonist June, and she's a teenager throughout the whole story. And I read this in a lit class in college. It really reads as young adult to me. It does deal with a lot of like issues you wouldn't tend to see in young adult. A lot of drug use, homelessness. Not that it does get covered in young adult. And this one is particularly on the dark side, but it's just really lyrical, beautiful, and it shows that the full depth of feeling you can get in young adult literature. Highly recommend this one. Okay, so first kids book here is Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. And this copy is super cute and tiny. I ordered it on Book Depository, not realizing that you would oftentimes get a British version of the book, and so that's how I got this cute little tiny copy. Like, my hand is bigger than that. But this book, so it's the main character is Leo, and this new girl moves to town. Her name is Stargirl, and she's just super weird and unconventional. She's different from everyone else. And to a certain extent, this book is a bit of a Manic Pixie Dream Girl type scheme. Type beat. But it's sort of like 500 Days of Summer, where like kind of is close to that, but there are these nuances that help break it away from the trope. It's not just a Manic Pixie Dream Girl story. And I think what happens here is Stargirl really reads as a real person. It's clear she wants to be different from everyone else, and she has a really unique background, like her mom worked in set design or something, and so she has these crazy costumes she wears to school. She plays the ukulele. It's set in, I think, New Mexico or Arizona in the American Southwest, and so she goes and meditates alone in the desert. She buys little gifts for children and sends it to them on their birthday. And it's like kids she doesn't know. Like, she does a lot of weird stuff. But then she falls in love with Leo, and Leo is sort of just this everyday kind of any Joe Schmo, and he doesn't particularly feel comfortable going outside of the status quo, and so she tries to change for him. She tries to become more normal. There's this really interesting scene where she goes to a clothing store and she buys things for how big the logo is, because like if it says Aeropostale or whatever else, it's a clear indicator that she's being normal and wearing branded clothing and acting like everyone else. And then there's a sequel to this book called Love, Stargirl, And it's from Stargirl's perspective, so I think that really helps with avoiding the manic pixie dream girl stereotype. And it really gets a little deeper into why she is the way she is. So I think those combined really make for a great young adult novel. This book is gorgeous. I love it so much. So highly recommend Stargirl. So then this is my last book. So I have Criss by Lynne Perkins. And this is one I've heard almost no one talk about. I mean, it has a Newbery medal, so I mean, obviously it did fine in the market. I just feel like when people talk about their favorite kids' books, it's not often this book, and I don't know, it's a shame. I just think this is a perfectly written little package. So first off, I mean, this cover is amazing. Something about it just draws me and is my aesthetic, like a girl standing alone, and that's on a lot of young adult covers. You know how it is. But just the way it's drawn, and Lynne Perkins illustrated this book as well, and I'm sure she did the cover. And it's just so aesthetically pleasing. So that's how I first started, and I think it's technically a middle grade novel. Very small word count, big text on the page. And because of that, it's really a slice of life book. It follows a group of characters in a summer as they change and become older and start getting attracted to each other and discovering themselves. One of the characters learns how to play guitar. His name is Hector, which I think is a great name. It's kind of set in the 80s, so it's a little vintage, which is fun. And I don't know, it just gets at all these tiny little bits of life when you're growing up and you live in a small town and there's not a lot to do. They just listen to this radio show every week. I mean, it doesn't sound super interesting, but it's almost like a big prose poem, honestly. It's just so well written. And the illustrations are pretty great too. This is one of my favorites. So it's called The Spectrum of Connectedness, and it says at one end 0%, no one is here, no one. And at the other end is 100%, no one is here, no one. And then it says in between, people move back and forth in this area like molecules in steam. So sort of saying that people are bouncing back and forth, and how connectedness is really ephemeral. I won't give away that ending, but it really cements that as a big theme, and how your connections and relationships with people are very almost random, and you don't have as much control over them as you think. Like, you can, if you make eye contact with someone by chance, you could start off a friendship, but if you just miss that, whatever, it's that connection doesn't end up getting made. Just so many amazing little illustrations throughout. And yeah, I don't often have middle grade novels that I think about, but there are just a few. You know, The Giver, Lois Lowry is a classic. Those middle grade novels that stick with you because they're so beautiful. And I think something about the sparseness, and also the fact that the subject matter is usually a little lighter, it can really feel more pure and just get across those feelings in a really pure way. So, Criss by Lynne Perkins, highly recommend. Those are some of my favorite books in the world. I'll probably do another video like this if you're interested. Let me know in the comments below. I know I'm not a super great reviewer in the classical sense. I only review books I love, and I kind of just talk about the things I like. I was an English major, so you think I'd be better at this, so apologies for that. But yeah, so that's all I've got for you today. Please comment below if you're interested in more videos like this. Let me know about some of your favorite books too. What has really stuck with you since becoming a writer? Please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little bell thing. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.